So I thought you probably want to know, like, why do I get the opportunity to come up here and talk to you? And why should you listen to me? That would be what I was thinking if I was sitting in your shoes. So, as Kelly said, I'm the founder and owner of Nelson Elder Care Law. We have helped over 7,000 families. And so probably just about everything that you're going through, I've probably been involved with during that time. So I just wanted to let you know that we've got different awards, etc., but who cares about that, right? But I do have some credibility. So I'm going to ask you to stand up, get something moving here. The first thing is, if you are a caregiver, would you stand up? So if you take care of somebody else, okay, quite a few. No, you can't sit down yet. You have to stay standing up. Okay. Stay standing if you have a spouse or a partner. If you don't, you can sit down. Okay. If you have children or grandchildren, keep standing. Okay, we're getting a lot of people in here. And if you also work outside of the home or get paid to work anyway. So I want to let you know that almost everybody is standing. So what that tells me is that you are in the right place and you're really, really smart to be here tonight, because we're going to talk about caregivers. 65 million people in the United States are caregivers. Isn't that amazing? Would you ever have guessed that? That's kind of like the 300,000 pieces of stuff in my house. I probably have 600,000. But most of those, or a large part anyway, are women. And so as women, a lot of you take this on. Maybe you even wanted to in the beginning, but if you've been doing it for very long, it's becoming taxing. So today I'm going to talk to you about you being a caregiver, because that is the critical link to continue to take care of your patient. I also want to talk to you about discussions that you need to have. These things are required, so pay attention. And then, who doesn't have family dynamics, even if you're not a caregiver? If you don't have any family dynamics, I really do want you to come and talk to me. I want to figure that out, because everybody seems to have some family dynamics. So let's talk about you. So you're trying to manage your own relationships, you're trying to manage work, you're trying to manage your health, and then do you have any backup plans? So let me tell you why this is so important. Because as a caregiver, you forget about taking care of you. There's always something that needs to be done for what I'm going to call your patient tonight. And the patient is the priority. But I've always had a special place in my heart for caregivers, because nobody else pays attention to you guys as caregivers. All the attention is on the patient. What is happening with that person? You know, everybody wants to talk to that person or know what's going on with them. They don't want to know how you are. But I do, because you need to take care of yourself. So make sure that if you've got doctor's appointments, don't put those off. Make sure that you have somebody. Christian offered some services that even you can get paid for by Medicare, maybe where they could come in and take care of your patient while you go and do what you need to do. How many of you caregivers are stressed? Yeah. I'm going to guess that you're stressed because there's not enough hours in the day to do everything that you need to do, and you feel like you're juggling 20 different balls in the air. You know what stress does to us, right? And then if you don't go to the doctor, or you don't do any exercise, or you just eat a peanut butter sandwich because that's the easiest thing you could put together when it's time for you to eat, those things are not good. So I want you to think about that. And who's going to take care of your patient if you can't? Who's going to step in? And one of the things that you might not know is that caregivers frequently die before the patient. Like, did you think about that? What's going to happen if something happens to you? I mean, you won't be stressed anymore, but your patient's probably going to be really stressed, and whoever else is around that loves the patient is really gonna be in a pickle. So I want to talk to you about a situation where, one of my clients, no names, of course, husband and wife came in and they did their estate plan, which good for them. They didn't realize what they needed to do. All of us think we need a will until you come and talk to somebody that tells you what a will does relative to an estate plan. But they came in, they got everything planned. The wife had been at home in a wheelchair for many years. So dad had been the caregiver. They had 3 daughters. One of them lived really close and the other 2 lived far away. And we're making sure they were not going to be anywhere near these parents because mom needed a lot of care. So in that situation, the husband and wife both thought the wife was going to die first because the husband was healthy and the wife had very poor health for many years. Well, that didn't happen. The man died. So now the daughter is like, well, she can't take care of mom on her own. Dad was at least living there and helping some ways. Now what are they going to do with mom? So they didn't have any kind of plan because they never thought that was a possibility. So I want you to think about that could be a possibility. What would happen if something happened to you? Who's going to be the person that picks up the pieces and that transition? How is that going to work? So think about yourselves. Now, we have talks all the time with our patient, with our family, right? But I'm talking about different talks, and there's really 3 areas. The first one is around benefits. So you might not know all the things that you might be eligible for. So usually your patient is on Medicare. Usually they have a Medicare supplement or maybe a Medicare Advantage plan. Maybe they're a veteran, even if they're not serving in the war right now, but if they were in the military during wartime for 90 consecutive days, they didn't have to be over there shooting guns or trying to kill anybody. They just had to be active duty 90 consecutive days while the war was going on. And then one day they needed to be, 90 consecutive days of service and only one day when the war is going on. So now we call Vietnam a war. Remember, it wasn't a war before, but now it is a war. The Korean thing, it wasn't a war then, but it is now. So those things qualify somebody as those 90 consecutive days with one day of a war effort. There's some very good veterans benefits that you probably need to know about if you qualify for them. There's also Medicaid. Medicaid will pay for, and you probably have heard a lot of bad stories. Anybody heard anything about Medicaid? Is it going to take your house? No, it's not. So Medicaid really doesn't want your house. But if you plan ahead of time, you can protect your assets, whatever they are, including your house. And then if your patient or you or someone in your family needs to go to a nursing home, then you might qualify, well, you will qualify if you plan in advance for Medicaid to pay for them. Why would you want to do that? So I'll tell you some things that people say to me. One is, I don't want to go to a nursing home. Well, let me tell you, the nursing homes are packed full of people that don't want to be there, right? Nobody wants to go to a nursing home. But the way that you have to go there is when you become so ill that you can't even get in your wheelchair by yourself and tootle down the hallway. So it takes 2 people to take care of you then, and usually you can't have that at home. Assisted living, they talked about Canterfield, which is a great place, but you can't be there if you can't get in your wheelchair, at least tootle down the hallway. So if something happens where you are too ill or too deteriorated with your health, you could go to the nursing home. Strokes. Anybody know anybody that's had a stroke? They are very common. I never knew before I started doing this how many strokes there are. And they just come out of nowhere. And it doesn't seem like there's a stroke test. You know, they can check all these other things for you to see if you're going to have a heart attack or whatever, or if you're going to have dementia, but there's no test to see, are you going to have a stroke? But a lot of people have a stroke and they can be very mild and you recover quickly from it, or they could be very devastating. And then you end up in a nursing home. Now, what do you think a nursing home costs? Kelly said $12,000 a month, and she's right. So $12,000 a month, I don't know about you, but I could go through my little nest egg pretty quick if me or my husband has to go to the nursing home. And then if I outlive him and I spend all my money at the nursing home, I'm going to be broke, or vice versa. And we don't want that for either one of us. We want to make sure we're both taken care of. So I want you to know that there are things that you can do to make sure that what you've saved your entire life doesn't get lost because you get older and you become ill. That's what drew me into this career when I found out that we save all of our life. And then the people that spent all their money, they qualify for these benefits. But if we saved all our life, they want all of our life savings before we qualify for the benefits. It's like, well, wait a minute. I thought I was doing the right thing. And now it turns out I wasn't. So there are ways that you can protect your nest egg. I want you to know that. There's also something called long-term care insurance. You might not have heard of it, but some people have. It was pretty common years ago, and I think that a lot of people buy it today. Long-term care insurance will pay for you when you can't do some of your activities of daily living, which I'll explain in a minute, and you need someone to help care for you. And it depends on the policy, how much they'll pay, how long they'll pay, and how debilitated you need to be before they will pay. But, you know, we have medical insurance that covers if I have to go to the doctor, or if I have a surgery or whatever. But we don't have any insurance if I can't get out of bed and dress myself in the morning. This is where long-term care insurance comes in. Or if I can't feed myself, or if I can't toilet, all the things that we do every day by ourselves when we're healthy, you have to pay someone to help you with, or get a family member to help you. But if you have long-term care insurance, then you can get it covered under that insurance policy. Anybody heard of long-term care insurance? I want you to know this because your patient might have had a long-term care insurance policy that they forgot about, or they're just not thinking about it. They paid and paid and paid, they might still be paying. But you don't know that they have it, so it might lapse. Or it might be that you don't pay that bill because you don't think it's important. I had one client that called me about a year ago, and this guy is 85 years old. His health is not good. His wife's health is not good. And he calls me and he said, they're charging me $5,000 a year for my long-term care insurance. I can't believe how much it's went up. Like, okay, client. Now, if you have to get someone come in your home or go to assisted living, that's going to be less than 1 year, or about the same as 1 year of your long-term care insurance, and you've been paying for it for 10 years. So keep paying for it. Now's the time when you really have to make sure you pay for it. Okay. So I want you to pay these bills before you pay anything else. I don't care if your patient has no other money, pay these bills first. Because these are the things that are going to keep you going and get some of the care that your patient needs. But don't put them aside. Some people will say, well, I got to pay a mortgage. A mortgage is important, but let me tell you, it takes about 1.5 to 2 years before they foreclose on your house. But if you don't pay the medical bills, they don't like to help you. So you don't want to be in that position. So make sure you pay those first. Conversations about medical things. I hope that you've had some of these. I hope you've had them all, but probably not. Just because nobody wants to talk about this stuff. My mom's 87 years old, and she says, I'm much too young to have these conversations, Cindy. I'm like, well, so what does your patient want? And it's good for you if you have a partner or a spouse to have these discussions, because we never know what's gonna happen. One thing I've learned in my practice is every day is a blessing, and you're never any healthier than you are today. So remember that. You're not gonna get healthier tomorrow or next week. Today is the best health that we're going to be. Isn't that disgusting? But, so let's have some conversations. Like, what does somebody want? Now, my mother says she does not want to go to an assisted living. Well, I don't know who she thinks is gonna take care of her if she doesn't go to the assisted living. Because it's me and my brother, and we both work full time, so who's gonna do that? And she doesn't have enough money to bring in a home care company to provide much care. So we have to have that critical conversation of, Mom, here's the options. Now, she's very independent at this point, but she's got macular degeneration, so she's losing her eyesight. So the idea that she lives independently is coming to an end. When I was just there a few weeks ago, something came unplugged and she was trying to plug it back in. She couldn't even see well enough to get the plug into the plug-in. And I'm like, and you're still driving. It's in Illinois, you all are saying. But, you know, what kind of things do they want? What kind of treatment do they want, or do they not want? Some people are pretty adamant that, you know, if I'm in this situation, I don't want to do this or that or something else. I want to have it this way. And then what do we want after we die? I will tell you, my younger brother died in an accident at 56. It's been 9 years ago, and nobody knew, well, everybody thought they knew what he wanted. He wasn't married, but his girlfriend, his daughter, my mother, all had different ideas. And so that poor guy, we had a mass for him. So he was embalmed because there was a mass and there was a viewing. And then they cremated him, but then they put him in an urn and they buried him. I'm like, there's nothing else we could do to this guy, right? Because nobody could agree on what it was. So that was about $20,000 worth of stuff that wasn't necessary, but nobody had the conversation, and he didn't have anything in writing of who gets to make the decisions and what decisions they should make. So you want to make sure you have some of these talks, and don't leave it up to, well, Mom told me this or Dad told me this, etc. You need to get what's called an advance directive for healthcare, or a healthcare power of attorney. They're the same things, but you and your patient need one, because there are going to be times that your patient or you may not be able to communicate your wishes, but somebody needs to make decisions for you. Now, there's also something called a living will. A living will is saying that if I'm on life support, so I'm still alive, but if I'm on life support and there's no chance, no way that I'm going to get better, I personally want them to pull the plug. Where the advance directive for healthcare is, I'm alive, but I want people to make specific decisions for me. Now, there's something else that's not a legal document, but you've probably heard of it. It's called a do not resuscitate, or DNR. Those come from a doctor. And what that means is that you have died. You've had some event that you have died, probably a cardiac event. And if you have a DNR, they will not try to resuscitate you or bring you back. So living will, you're still alive, and decisions need to be made whether you're kept alive or not. And DNR, you're dead, decisions need to be made about whether you're going to be brought back to life or not. So these are really important decisions that you don't want somebody to have to make when they don't know what you're interested in. And then the question is, if you have these legal documents, where are they? Who has a copy? Does the person that you have asked to make decisions for you, do they have a copy? And if they do, if you're the one that has the copies, you need to have those with you like all the time. Because when you go to the hospital, if it's an emergency and somebody says, do you have a living will? And you don't have it right there, they're not gonna take your word for it, right? So what good is it if you don't have it? And if we're at the hospital, this is more likely. Let's say Kelly and I are sisters, and we're at the hospital, and we do have a living will for mom, and mom doesn't want to be kept alive. But Kelly wants mom to be kept alive. So she's telling the doctors while she's crying and being hysterical that she wants mom to be kept alive. And while I'm crying and being hysterical, I'm saying, no, mom didn't want to be kept alive. Let me tell you what's going to happen right now. The doctor's going to walk out of the room and they're not going to do anything for either one of us. They're probably going to make us go to court or produce that living will. Because family feuds, doctors do not want to get in the middle of it. Because what are they thinking? Lawsuit. That us nasty lawyers are going to sue them. So they don't want to get involved in that. So you have to have it with you. Financial conversations. Well, I don't know about you, but I don't like to tell other people about my money. I don't want them to know like what I have, where I have it, especially my children. You know, maybe they'll knock me off trying to, you know, get to the little bit of money that I have. Maybe they think I have more. Maybe they think they're the beneficiaries, and maybe they'll start fighting over it. Who knows? But you don't want to have those conversations, but you need to. Again, you have a spouse, or like my mom is not married, she's single. So there's nobody else that she's going to talk to about these things. The first thing that I need to know is what kind of assets does she have? Is her house paid for? Does she have a loan? Does she have, you know, any kind of CDs, bank accounts, a retirement account? How about a pension? What money does she have coming in and what does she own? And then how do I get in touch with all those people? You would be surprised at how many people, their patient becomes incapacitated and maybe they want to move to an assisted living or a nursing home, but they can't get in touch with the retirement place, or they won't let them talk to the retirement place, so they can't change anything. So you don't want to do it then. Let's do it in advance. The next thing you need to know is what do they owe? So do they have a home loan that they're paying on? Do they have car insurance? Do they have a car? Are those things, you know, that they're paying on every month? What about utilities? Have any of you ever tried to call Comcast? Now that is just a cable for television or whatever. They will not talk to you, will they? And even if somebody is incapacitated, they are not going to talk to you. And then it gets worse after they're dead. Because now they're really not going to talk to you, but they're going to keep billing. And most utilities are the same way. So you need to get all of this information. I'm going to suggest that you put together a binder. I know, it sounds like I'm mean, but true. A binder of different sections. So you have all of this when the emergency happens. Because it's quite likely that it's going to happen. You just don't know when. And life as a caregiver, it makes unpredictability like on steroids, right? It's so unpredictable. You have no idea what's going to happen the next hour. Legally, you need to have a financial power of attorney. This is a legal document that says, if I'm in a position that I need someone else to make financial decisions for me, this is the person I want to do it, and this is the person as a backup. Now, many of us have children that have addiction issues, and that's okay, but don't make the addiction issue guy or girl the one that's making financial decisions. That's not going to work out well. You want somebody that's responsible and somebody that's good with money. Even if it's not one of your children, that's okay, because you need to have that money to get your care. The other thing that you might want to think about is a will. Anybody ever known a family that people didn't talk after someone died. Yeah, I can tell you my family went through, still going through it 9 years later. And, you know, we just don't talk, and it's horrible. But if you have a will, then that makes it legal. No matter what anyone says, if someone says, well, mom said I can have this doll. If it's not in the will, it's not happening. People can't come in and just take stuff. So you need a will. How many have heard of a trust? There's a variety of different kinds of trusts. I'm going to tell you that you need a trust that protects assets. And I'm not going to go into the depths of that, but there are some that can protect assets, that you also can still be in control. You can still use the assets, etc. But that's probably what many of us need, especially if we have a house. And I forgot to mention this, but people that are married frequently think that, let's say I die, I think everything's gonna go to my husband, right? I mean, we've been together all these years, we've been putting money in our little savings account, we've been paying for things. No, and especially because he's my second husband. So what happens is, if I die and I don't have a will, then my husband will get 1/3 of everything that's mine. So my half of the house, he gets 1/3 of it. My two children each get 1/3. Now, I've seen where children are not kind in this situation, and they are saying, show me the money. They want to sell the house or have the person that's alive buy them out. And most people don't have cash like that laying around, and maybe can't even get a credit, or who wants to take out a loan these days, right? So without a will, it all does not go to my husband. He's going to be really upset about that, because my kids have never made a house payment for us. Has yours? Probably not. So you want to make sure, again, that you have these things in writing, legal, and then who has it? Because the person that has them is the decision maker, should be the one that has it, so that they're able to implement those things. If you go to the bank and say, I want to talk to you about my dad's account, what do you think they're going to say? Like, oh no, not going to happen. They might even call Adult Protective Services if you don't have the legal documentation. So make sure you get this, put it in your binder, so you're all prepared. I'm going to tell you of a situation. Actually, the lady still works for us. Her mom was actually the same age as I am. So she, at the time, was 61 years old. And she had been divorced, single for a long time, but she met this guy and they decided to get married. They got married on New Year's Eve, and, you know, the kids didn't really know him because she hadn't dated him long, etc. But she was happy, so we all want our parents to be happy. You know, what the heck, go for it. We had been trying to get her mom to put together an estate plan, but her mom was not doing it. Well, fast forward to August. So 8 months after they got married, mom gets diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Now, most of us know pancreatic cancer is a short-term illness. It doesn't last very long. So mom now comes in and she does get her estate plan put together. Thank God. Because as she gets more sick, her new husband doesn't want the kids in the house. He doesn't want the kids doing anything for her, but he doesn't want to take care of her either. And he doesn't want to spend any money to hire someone to take care of her. So luckily, because she had the legal documents, her daughter that works for us was able to get mom out of that house, bring her to her house, and take care of her for the last few weeks of her life. But otherwise, that would have, I mean, you just don't want anyone to have to go through those things. I'm sorry, I have some of the worst stories. Who has family feuds already? I mean, we all get along with everyone in our family, don't we? Love them to death. So when you get in this situation, you've got your parents first off. Now, I'm going to tell you, sometimes your parent or your patient, they're the ones causing the family dynamics. And I've seen it. So they'll come in and they'll talk to me and they'll say, oh, I want Kelly to do this, and I want Janet to do that. But when it comes time to do the paperwork and make it legal, I don't know. Now there's a third daughter who's gonna be upset. And I don't know that Kelly can handle all of that decision making. So I don't think she should do it. But the mom or the dad will get entangled in this because I don't know why, but sometimes they like to stir it up. And so maybe it gets them some attention or whatever, but they stir it up. So they can be the key person in it, but it's usually siblings. So luckily, me and both of my brothers got along great, and we still do, even after the one passed away. Because my other brother and I are the trustees of this estate for the last 9 years and have had to work together very closely. So yay, that's worked out. Because otherwise, we could be in court for a lot of different things between the two of us. But luckily, we're only in court for the other beneficiaries that we're not even beneficiaries that are fighting over the money. But you've got siblings, and this brings up stuff from when you were young. It's stuff that you might not even remember. It might not even be true. My son thinks that I forgot him at grade school, and I did not pick him up one evening in the aftercare program. Like, well, what happened? He's like, well, I had to call, your friend down the street. Like, we didn't even have cell phones back then. How did you know, like, to call him? And there's just no way. I mean, if I had forgot a child, I would remember that. But anyway, so stuff goes on that you don't even know is going on, and they're having some spat about it because of something that happened much earlier in life. So you've got the siblings. But then, you also have the aunts and uncles. And they think that they were the sister or brother, and they should get to make decisions because they still think of you as 5 years old. They don't realize that maybe you're even a nurse or a doctor. You really know this stuff, or maybe you work in the senior industry. They don't care. They're the brother and the sister. They're going to want to make decisions. Well, then you have the in-laws. Yeah, so maybe the brother and the sisters are getting along fine, but it's their spouses who are saying, oh, that Kelly, she's gonna try to rip us off. She's gonna take all the money and we're not gonna get any of it. And you need to be in there, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing that. And it just stirs it up. So this is how these family dynamics get going. Anybody think that would happen in their family? A few of you? Probably more. So one of the things when you're dealing with your patient is the roles have changed. And it's nothing that's said. It's nothing that you have an intentional conversation about. But I see this happening with my mom. And a lot of people have had this happen much earlier than my mom's life, than 87. But at some point, you're not the child anymore. Your patient is not the parents. They're not the ones making decisions. And that could be they don't want to, but it's usually because they're not making the right decisions. So then they're wondering what you're up to because they start to get paranoid, especially if they have some kind of cognitive impairment, dementia. That's just a symptom of that disease anyway. But at some point, these roles have changed. You feel uncomfortable with it. We're not used to telling our parents what to do. We're used to them, like knocking us on the head if we don't do what they tell us to do. So it has changed, and you have to kind of recognize that and be okay with that yourself, because you have a different role now, and you need to continue to take care of them. I always say to let the guiding light for you to be safety. When your patient is not safe making their own decisions, then it's time for you to jump in. There's a lot of people getting scammed with money and everything. My mom's 87 and dating. And so, I'm worried. I don't want her to have access to too much money because somebody could come in and rip her off pretty easily. This is a very interesting story, and it happened about 9 years ago, but it's one, some things just stick in your head. This one, it was a mom, she had a son, grown son, he was in his 50s, and 2 daughters. The son still lived with her because he was one of those addiction children. And mom had dementia. Now, the other daughter, one daughter, I'm gonna call her the bad daughter. The bad daughter thought it was okay for mom to continue to live with the son. And the good daughter was like, no. The reason the good daughter wanted her out of there was because the son was having parties every night with people over drinking, doing drugs, and loud music, and mom was dancing around naked and drinking tequila. So the good daughter was like, oh my gosh, I can't leave her like that. And the good daughter was single. She worked at a bank. She didn't have a lot of money, but she did convince her mom to come over to her house and stay there. But what happened is the good daughter's paying for caregivers while her daughter's at work. The caregivers are not letting mom run around naked in the front yard or drink tequila. And so she doesn't like it there anymore. She wants to go back to her son because that was so much more fun. And they had no legal documents, but you could get what's called a guardian. I know, you can't make this stuff up, I'm telling you. Many times thought about writing a book. Anyway, so the mom doesn't want to stay there. You can get what's called a guardianship, which is a court process where you have to go in front of the court and they don't really know you. They get a little bit of information. They have somebody interview for an hour. And if your mom is having a good day or whatever, then it's not going to turn out the way that you want it to. And it costs about $10,000, very expensive. So get the legal documents. Anyway, so the good daughter, she's going to pay for a guardianship. And it takes about 3 to 4 months to get a guardianship. So she's just hoping that her mom survives while the son is living off of mom's money and everything. Well, we get in front of the judge and the judge asks the mom, where does she want to live? And she says she wants to live with the son. And so the judge is like, well, why can't she live with the son? Oh, you gotta be kidding me. Anyway, the good daughter did get custody of mom. But what happened was the brother and the bad daughter came and picked her up and took her back to the house with the son. So it can be just a horrible situation if you don't get these things talked about, give people authority, and have them available. So now, back to my binder idea. Did you guys like that idea? Okay, good. My husband thinks I'm a little too anal. But you gotta have a plan. So what's the plan? And I'm talking about a plan for everything that might happen. What happens if your patient goes to the hospital? What are you going to do? If you work, you have a family, are you going to stay up at the hospital with them? Who's going to make the decisions? Is the medical decision maker around here? Are they going to come up to the hospital? Or do they live in another state, etc.? And does your patient have enough cognitive ability to make some decisions themselves? You want them to be as independent as they can, but you also have to keep them safe. The medical documentation you need to have with you, as I said previously, because if you don't have it with you, it really doesn't matter. But all of a sudden, when you're in the hospital, they don't keep you long anymore, right? If you're not going to die today, you're discharged. And then where are you going to get discharged to? If the person can't go home and take care of themselves as much as they used to, then what's the problem? What's going to happen? Well, you could call Christian, but it takes him, a few days to get his people scheduled. They got to do an evaluation and stuff. I mean, that's fast. He's really fast. I've had to call him for an emergency situation, but you want to have these places lined up. You want to know what benefits are out there, what kind of things can you implement when you get to that point? Because chances are pretty good you're going to get to that point. Something's going to happen. You've probably already been through something. And what if your patient can't go home anymore? And you need to find an assisted living. Well, if you haven't looked at assisted livings, there's a lot of them. And they all have different amenities and different attributes. And, you know, like my mom's not gonna be feeling comfortable in the Taj Mahal. So it needs to be a little bit more homey for my mom. But what does your mom or dad want? So family feuds can really divide the family tree. And in my own situation, my brother's daughter and his granddaughter, he was estranged from his daughter, but he was raising the granddaughter. And so he left a lot of money to the daughter, or the granddaughter, I'm sorry, this is really confusing, to the granddaughter and to my mom. And he had quite a bit of money. Well, the granddaughter was 13 when my brother passed. She had never lived with her mother, but now all of a sudden, she's got to move to Florida from Illinois and go live with her mom. Well, her mom is not letting that girl go because she's got money now. Mom wants her now. So it's been a fight for 9 years. And what has really happened with that is, so I don't see my niece, I don't see my great niece, I don't see my other nieces. You know, everything is divided. We'll never probably talk again. And that will go on through history. As they have children, that tree is going to continue to be divided. It's not coming back around, you know, and that's what you need to understand. When the tree breaks, it's hard to reconcile those things. And sometimes it doesn't get reconciled. So I want to thank you for listening to me tonight and for having me. I think we have a few minutes for questions. Is that right?